Hello.
Oh,
Hi.
and I believe
Hi.
we are now live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our panel. We're here to present working on games with voice actor brains, which is a witty title I came up when no one disagreed with. So that's what we're using. So the four of us are members of the game industry who have worked in some form of voice, but we also have other aspects of our daily jobs that are not just in front of a microphone making sounds out of our faces. So we thought we would help share you guys some of the relationships between voice and the not voice audio angle of the business, and tips and tricks and little happy things like that. So let's start with let's identify ourselves and say why specifically we're here, what aspects of voice relate and audio relate to the discussion we're about to have. Who wants to go first? John?
Yes. Hi. My name is John Robert MATZ. I am a voice actor, and I don't know why I'm here. No, I'm a voice actor. I'm primarily, though, a composer and a vocalist, singer, tenor, and I have an assortment of brass instruments cluttering up my studio, which are basically there just for decoration. No, I'm also I play a lot of brass. I'm a trumpet player, and I'm the principal trumpet of the game brass, which you may have heard between some of these streams. Yeah.
Very cool.
Hi, I'm Brian Diamond, aka Nautilus Tea Party. Some people might know me from my VGM stuff. I have gone through many forms to get where I am right now. This may not even be my final form. I don't know. I am a voice actor. I started off as a singer in bands years ago. I've been an audio designer, composer. I'm kind of a freelance audio designer, composer outside of voiceover, and I also deal with quality control in audiobooks as well. So that's my main job at the moment. So yeah. I'm based in Ireland, and everybody else is really far away from me. But, you know, I'm happy to be here.
Finding a time zone for this panel was fun.
We are happy to have you, sir. Always.
Thank you.
Alex.
Wow, I don't have a name. Last name is cool as Diamond. I mean, how cool a last name is that? I'm Alex Brandon. It is, yes, thanks for having me on this. And I started as a composer myself, sort of composer slash biz dev guy for a little company that sold a shooter to a relatively small company at the time known as Epic Mega Games. And then they, of course, became pretty big, I guess.
I think we've heard of
So,
them.
yeah, we've heard of them by now, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was lucky enough to work on their early projects, and of course that gives you an idea of how ancient I am at this point. But then that led into VO work, which is more or less something that people kept telling me, "Hey, you should become a voice actor," and so I ended up in doing some voice for games at that point. But my primary job now is audio direction, and so that's kind of what I'm up to these days. Yay!
Yay. And I guess I'm the ringleader of this fun little circus of ours, Bonnie BOGOVICH. I come from voice from more the singing and crazy monster performance angle. Some of you who are attending VGM Together may know me as the leader of the Block Choir, where I organize some very bizarre choral things like singing chickens who do VGM music. I'm also one of the founders of Super Smash Opera. So on the vocal angle, I usually lean towards the more silly stuff, but my day job transitioned from someone who was more the behind the scenes theater person who did a lot of audio but also stage tech design. I fell into interactive media, which fell into video games, and for a long time I was the audio lead, and my voice was left in for a lot of temp. Started not being temp anymore. I discovered I actually liked being not temp, and when I broke out from working as the audio lead at Shell Games for a while, I formed my own company where I now specialize mostly in vocals and sound design. And like Alex, I've also started taking on a bit of direction. And we'll get into how sometimes backgrounds that lead you into being a director are a natural flow. But yeah, so we have a nice mixture of a lot of different things going on with our histories. And I guess maybe one of the first places to talk about is, so we all speak, we're singing and speakers and voice. How does being a voice professional influence these other jobs and other roles you have had?
I'll take a crack at that one. let's see, coming from where I didn't, even think that voice would play a role in games at any point when I first started in it, meaning like Asteroids, which I played when I was 7 years old, then getting into the NES. So the thing about how voice influences what I do is you get to see how even one line of dialogue can influence, a player's response to a game. And so from that led to people saying, hey, let's put some voice into the game. That'll make it neat. That'll make it competitive, right? A lot of people just think that and then may not realize what is truly involved in making that voice influential in gameplay. So therefore, that led to sort of my personal credo, and it's shared by quite a few, I'm sure, just that if you have any lines, each and every single one of those lines has to matter to what it is that you think you're doing. You could be influencing the story. You could be telling the player what they're supposed to be doing in gameplay. You could be creating more atmosphere, but all of those things need to be super important considerations rather than, hey, people are talking. So go to audioatrocities.net or .com and check out some old examples of
we are not officially affiliated with or sponsored by audioatrocities.com.
It's I think I'm almost positive it's a fan-run page where people that curate their own stuff and then put it up there, right? For games that are a little bit under the radar, you may not have even heard of them, like Last Alert for the TurboGrafx 16 or the Turbo CD or whatever it is. And so check that stuff out, and you'll realize that just putting voice into a game isn't necessarily a good way to go. And so that it has a huge impact on other aspects. And that's actually sort of my spiel on that.
I think also going off on that is some people, whenever they're like, yes, the client wants voice in the game, so we will have voice in a game. Here's a list of voice. Someone just record it, and it's going in. Knowing from both someone who's had to work with the designers and someone who's been sent a blind script without any direction, it can be rather terrifying to be handed something and not know what the context is. Like you said, is it a narrator? Is it someone being attacked in the scene? Is it a tutorial? If you just give someone lines like, they're all like, hi, oh, no, what? I'm on fire. Depending on the game, you have to learn to give your voice actors context. Is it a comedy? I'm on fire. Is it like is it a realistic, crazy thing? Where it's like
I'm on fire.
Oh my god, my children, I'm on fire. And if you're saying hey, who are you saying hey to? Who are you greeting?
No, you're supposed to be using a sarcastic voice. Now I look foolish.
But but still, like, you could hand the complete wrong dialogue in and think you've done your job, and maybe the person is getting the assets have done their job. But if they haven't given you instructions before or thought to provide a director money on the the producer side, they will see money wasted because it'll go in and they'll have to do reshoots or re-records or something else. And going in as someone on the design team, if you end up being on the sound design team or someone who actually is allowed to have a dialogue with the director, pitching yourself on the director end as someone who can actually be on the call to make sure the right delivery is happening is a great way to not only advance in the industry, but to make sure that the money is well spent and a good product comes out and you all look like you've done your job. But without direction, there are horror stories. I think Audio Atrocities, great example. Also, was there a Mario video that was popular for a while on YouTube of someone who did all the sounds of Mario, but it was like a realistic horror game?
Yeah, the realistic take on it.
Like,
so he falls
bashing his head into the ceiling. It's like,
I've seen some realistic videos of Pac-Man and Tetris and various other things, and like track and field where people are screaming when they fall over.
But yeah, without context, it's hard.
But just a very quick interjection. You mentioned about the one word prompts and stuff and context and everything. I always find those to be the absolute most difficult things. It's like when you have a long line, you can work yourself into it. Like I feel like, but when it's like, hey, I'll say like, hey, like 500 times and still not be happy with it. hey, and then I stop for 2 minutes and then come back. I was like, it was the first one.
Having the context is vitally important. And like there's a bit that I remember hearing in a documentary, I think like No Clip did, about like Bethesda's early forays into like like voice direction for like I think it was Oblivion or something like that, where all of the script was in alphabetical order.
Oh
So every
no.
line was like,
Oh no.
it was like
Yeah.
approach
Oh,
and
Uh,
another thing, and and it's like
Annihilate them
hello,
all.
oh man.
Fun times.
hysterically, and so it was just every single line a character would have in alphabetical order, and it's like,
Yeah.
how can you possibly like out of context different scenes from hours of gameplay apart? How do you make that work? So
Yeah.
like as going back to the original question here about like how does a VO influence your other roles? Well, mostly I'm a composer, and I have some very specific connections to that. But like when you are working on especially smaller indie games, you know it's really helpful to know, like, hey, even if I'm not the guy who's implementing VO or even directing VO, or if it's a small enough team where there is no one doing that, having that background, being able to step in and say, hey, let's do this way. Let's like some basic stuff like,
Yeah.
hey, let's we're doing the session with the talent, and we're gonna put, let's put all of the exertions and the screaming and the dying at the end. Let's like not burn them out at the beginning. Let's start with the gentle stuff, the tender
Oh
scene,
man.
the whatever it is like that we want to have, right?
That
Because
it is
otherwise,
such a lifesaver too, and you're not only helping your talent not fry themselves, you'll get a whole better rounded pile of performances out of it and save
exactly.
money and time.
Mhm.
I love that. I mentioned that once to one of my clients that they had me doing a lot of comedic stuff, but I had a maniacal villain named Aida San Antonio. She is the misforgotten cousin of Carmen San Diego, but she's Aida, and she had a lot of
Wow.
like. She would be like, Howard Blake, I want to kill you but kiss you, but then she'd have like, minions, let's do the thing, and there was a lot of those. And I mentioned to the writer, because he wanted to direct the sessions, like, it would help so much if we tiered everything in the recording based on the level of exertion. And it was great, and we worked out, in his case, a color coding system, because he preferred to work still with like a normal teleplay script format.
Yeah.
And he had a log, and we would just zip around, and we would do the greens first, and then we would do the yellows first, and the reds. And also, by still giving me the whole script, anytime you can have someone to read against when there's dialogue, oh my God, you get so much of a better performance. He would read every one that I'm bouncing off of.
Give the setup for the line, and then they give then they give the response, and you can like play through a scene way better, even if you're just you're not the talent that is the other character. You don't necessarily have to read off you have to have everyone in the same room, although if you can,
it's amazing.
wonderful.
And for folks going, no COVID, the same room can be a it can be a Zoom call, it can be a multi-headed Google Hangouts chat. There are so many easy free ways to do multi-person
I'm thinking
recording.
I'm picturing multiple heads, literally.
Hydra.
Yes.
I've got some other nonsense that about this question as well, but Brian,
this is not nonsense, it's educational material.
For me, like VO influencing, it's very cyclical for me, because I started off as a singer, so my experience as a singer, I think my musical timing kind of affects the way that I deliver lines, and I did like animation for a while as well. At one point back in the dark ages of, Alex is probably going to kill me by saying the early 2000s, the dark ages, but
Oh no,
it's all relative, It's
you're
but,
right.
And the singing background kind of helped me build up a strength of voice as well, that I can kind of get involved in creature sound design as well for my VO, and kind of channel kind of performance in that way as well. So also, one other thing, my audio, I didn't think it would, but my audiobook quality control thing, which involves me like, listening back to audiobooks a lot and finding mistakes and pronunciation errors at various other things, really clued me into detail oriented stuff with my voiceover, and catching little things, and editing as well, so the short answer is so many things influence so many other things, and it's very difficult.
Influence things.
It's like a ball of elastic bands or something. I don't know. It's all difficult to unravel for me, at least, because I've just been a jack of all trades for so long at this stage.
But it's good though, because would you rather bring on, if there was an opening in a team to work with voice actors and streamline this process, would you rather bring on some guy from just art or something else who likes watching anime, or
Mm.
someone who actually has been in the booth and has
I mean, that
worked
depends
on
on the
both
anime,
good or bad.
but you know.
Well, yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
joking.
Not to say anything bad about animes because they're all special.
No, of course. You
But
would want
still,
someone
like,
that has some form of experience, either
mhm,
from the acting end, the directing end, the writing
yeah,
end as well. You know,
mhm.
that is also an important. It's not always a case of that the writer would also be, but you know, the writer
But
is intending.
we
Yeah,
are
has an intention. So.
well, we an untitled game that actually Brian Diamond and I are currently working on, which will be an audio only choose your own adventure, involves a lot of speaking and knowing timing and pacing, and it actually has become a really critical thing to have a voice actor background, especially knowing that our team is small and many of us are going to be the ones recording, that when you're told that an Amazon Echo has a limit of 90 seconds for each WAV file, how much can you cram into 90 seconds? Also, how much of that can sound not rushed and natural and not bore the listener if all you get is a voiceover?
Yeah.
And it's
Can I?
yeah.
John
Go
just
ahead.
went, oh.
Go ahead.
I got two wonderful connections to that specific thing. So Bonnie and I have both been working on a game called Ambition: A
yes.
Minuet in Power.
Yes, we
Now,
have.
Ambition is a Ambition is it basically structured as like a choose your own adventure with some procedural elements, some roguelike bits here and there, but basically it's a visual novel presentation set in
It's an
Paris on the
ambitious
eve
project,
set in Paris on the eve of the French Revolution. And so it's a lot of reading and a lot of dialogue and a lot of like choosing what you're going to do next. And I've crafted a lot of it doesn't have like substantial voice acting. Like there's a few barks here and there, and Bonnie has provided a lot of that stuff. But
Yes,
there are
a lot of
there's
non-verbal emote things going on in that game. Like a lot of crowds of people going, "Oh my word!" Oh! Actually,
Yeah,
Brian Diamond is one of the voices in one of the.
I
crowd
thought I
scenes.
recognized him.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes, you dragged me in
Hoity-toity.
while I was
It's very
unofficially. You
good.
dragged me
The
in on
French
holiday.
version of "Oh my word, I cannot believe she did that." Basically,
It's beautiful. Good. It's beautiful.
Oh.
As we're doing this thing,
Anyway.
writing the score for this, I've designed like these for some of these bigger scenes. You have long, like unfolding accordioning musical cues that have like looping bits here, a vamp here, and then it branches depending on which part of the conversation you go down, etc. But to get the timing right, you have to sit there and read the text and read the dialogue in real time. And there's a sneaky part here too, which is you try to write the music so that it informs the pace of the scene. And if it's faster music, people will tend to like read faster and move faster. If it's slower, if the intensity is slightly less or more drawn out, they'll take a little bit more time potentially. And so you try to like use your acting skill to put yourself in the mind of person reading this this text and time it out like that. Like, okay, it takes me this long to read through the screen, the scene, and then when we get to this point, we should have the music basically be getting to the next pivot point or to a safety vamp or something like that before we move on. And then springing off of that, I got to do something that was somewhat more wild and similar to this, game adjacent. I just finished working on the music for a TV show for Facebook called Rival Speak, which is connected to a video game. Connected to a video game called Rival Peak, which hence video game connection. But it's a TV show. It's a linear piece of media. But we did it because it's connected to this live game that people are playing and making choices in, and the story is branching radically every week. And the writers are literally writing the plot ahead of the train that is barreling down the tracks. We would shoot it in one day and then put the whole thing together. Basically, like, they'd shoot it, they'd be editing while we shot it, and then I would have like 12 hours to write all the music for a 25-minute episode. And so you get the script like 4 days before, 3 days before, and you'd write everything you could in advance. And one of the things that to make the edit faster, the editors had me do was read all of Will's lines. So they had a dummy audio track, and I got to be Will Wheaton. Hi, I'm your host, Will Wheaton, and like do this whole bit, which was never heard by anyone. But it gave them a really good thing to match to.
Right.
And then they would give me that back, or I would have used my own versions of my recordings to write the music for a scene, fingers crossed, hoping that Will, when he performed it, would perform it roughly in the same ballpark, so that
Right.
when it was all said and done, I wouldn't have to radically alter the music that I've written, because you've only got X number of hours before it goes to air. So that's another
Wow.
good tie into that question, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of that too is like, you can't just pretend what you think Will Wheaton would be. You kind of have to study some of his speech patterns, and if you haven't already seen him talk on like tabletop and other things, you have to become the Wheaton.
Become
the Wheaton.
And I think we're just getting a little uncomfortable here. Let's move on.
Move on.
Alex,
Moving on.
I guess, did you have a tidbit for that? Otherwise, I think we can dig into our past for a second.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
So here's the what came first question. How did was it VO or the other audio job first, and when did the merger happen, kind of thing? How did you get into that?
I started
I have a
with
cat.
yes,
Cat has appeared. There's Jaws.
There's
Luna says hi, everyone.
What's up?
Hello,
Luna? So I started, like I said, I had to sell. Oh yes, I had to. I had a bunch of ad-lib songs from the ad-lib sound card that I had passionately written for this shooter that I'm very grateful got published by good old Epic Mega Games back in the day. And VO didn't come along until the year 2000, which would have been 5 years after that. And yes, the dark ages.
In the year 2000.
And so that was Deus Ex, as a matter of fact. We were the way that voice was done for that was R.I.P. Peter Marquardt, who was also the character Mojo in El Mariachi. If you've seen that movie, he's the bad guy, and he was the producer on Deus Ex. And he would this was in Dallas, actually, because most of the team was in Austin, but he was working in Dallas. He would find actors all over the place. Some of these people were straight up union hires, and some of these people where he would be like walking around in the street listening for people's voices, and he would say, "Hey, follow me," and like take them back.
Follow
to
me
the
into this
studio.
windowless van and do voice for me.
Hopefully not that.
It's like really creepy.
He would just invite people to. Well, that's how Balaji Badejo was found for the alien role, because they just saw a really tall guy in a bar and said, "Hey, the old, do you want to be in pictures?" line. And so yeah,
Oh
so I mean, it really does happen. No, I can't say that it happens that often, but yeah, that's what Peter was doing. And so there were a few spare roles that they needed help with, among whom were like Tech Sergeant Kaplan when you get to the UNATCO headquarters. And I just, I was the audio director at the time. I had just moved from Colorado to my first audio director job at Ion Storm, and so I had a microphone in the corner with some foam, and I was able to go and do some quick one-off videos. That led to other things, mainly because the person that we had hired there, Mark Lampert, who consummate professional audio guy. I mean, super really good at what he did. Super organized. He would take Excel spreadsheets with the status of all the VO before anybody had really done that yet. And we were just using straight up text file scripts. And it was just all, very primitive at the time. But he helped up the ante in terms of just our process. But that was his first job out of college. He was invited by Emil Paguiliaro to go join Bethesda as their audio lead. And he ended up running the show for all the audio for games like Skyrim. And so from that, he called me up and said, "Hey, we've got a couple roles for you in Skyrim." And I was like, "Oh my God, it's Max von Sydow and Christopher Plummer and all these great actors are in this." And so, yeah, that's how that, but that wasn't what paid bills per se. The thing that actually kept me paying bills was doing steady sound design work. The music fell off after a while and the sound design went up. And I'd say that over the last 15 years, at least, sound design is comprised and audio direction is comprised like more than 90% of how I survive. But I'm still lucky enough to do VO gigs. But most of my colleagues, that's not actually what they end up doing. And they're awesome at being able to do VO. But yeah, that's my spiel. VO didn't come first.
And you also do you've made a name for yourself also being like a Nuendo expert. You've done a couple tutorials and things like that too. You're like the software guy.
I like tech, and I've always looking for ways that pro audio can, since we're talking about cross-pollination of various things, I've always thought, there's got to be a better way to combine the tools that we use on a regular basis with the tools that we use in games on a regular basis for the actual game development. Steinberg took some steps that nobody had taken before with Game Audio Connect and made it so that you can put things directly from Nuendo into Audio Kinetic's Wise tool. And that was pretty amazing. I know that there's people who have also done custom scripts for DAWs like Reaper, and that is a continuously evolving field, but it still has a long way to go. It's amazing how people don't look at iteration or the iteration of iteration, right? Just saying wait a minute, this part of my process takes me 5 minutes per file.
Yeah.
And it could take 30 seconds. Imagine how much time you would save, right? Not many people really think along those lines. People think about end results and oh my gosh, this preamp was awesome. And it was just amazing. So it made my mix sound just unbelievable. And that's not your regular, as you're doing things, make things easier, make things faster, so that you can have more quality in what you do just because of that iteration time. So sorry, I could soapbox about iteration.
I know.
You're right.
Let's bounce on to another individual. Who wants to share voice or the other thing, or which one happened first and how and blah?
Well,
cat.
Voice was definitely the voiceover wasn't the first thing for me, but singing was. I was singing in bands. I was singing on various other things. I moved from singing to 3D modeling back when I was 20. So 3D modeling and texturing environments and stuff in 3ds Max and stuff. And then it was I'm too much of a perfectionist for this. I'm more naturally good with my voice than I am with that. I did it for a few years, and then I went back to university and got into a creative sound production course, which was media and video games and various other things. And my very first experience with VO was I had to produce a radio drama, actually, a Scottish-based radio drama, because I was in Dundee, Scotland at the time, University of Abertay. Shout out to them, those good people. And that was it was a student project where I was mashed together with a bunch of folk who actually ended up being formed a band with for about 5 or 6 years, which was cool. And I ended up doing a lot of the script writing and performances and stuff, and also some random medieval knight thing for a fictitious game. That was also an assignment where I was playing all of the English knights and all of the French knights. It was basically Monty Python sketch with the, it's your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberries. Much more recently, though, to get to the proper point now, VGM remixing was kind of what directly led me into voiceover as I am doing now. I joined the Materia Collective back in 2015. And I met a lot of folks here through that.
Is that how long ago that was?
Oh, yeah.
Well, 2016 is when I joined, technically, right after their first big album came out, Materia, the self-titled album. Kind of.
Their self-titled album. I love it.
But anyways, but my first, I think, really realistic, my first proper VO thing was with you, Bonnie, on the Dracula radio play. Proper, where I played a Yorkshire. Mr. Doctor or
Mr. Swales.
Mr. Swales. Yeah.
Oh my God! For folks who don't know the Dracula story, he's kind of the old sea dog wandering around the cemetery that scares Lucy.
Who admittedly sometimes sounded a bit like the sea captain from The Simpsons, but and
he would say look at them tombstones.
Be careful the stains over there.
Yeah.
It's it comes for me and I'll be dying quick kind of
and
thing.
Also, and on top of that, you weren't just a very active voice actor in that. You helped me out as one of my editors.
Yeah.
Because Van Helsing,
you had a lot on your plate.
So I was the main editor for Dracula, and if you guys know the book Dracula, Van Helsing talks a lot. It's a lot, and it's in Quaker Dutch. He has a lot of
funny outtakes as well, but I won't go into them.
Because... eons of dialogue recorded by a wonderful man named Cyrus Namadi. But Brian stepped up as my assistant editor just to edit down Van Helsing dialogue because there was
Quick shout
I would
out
have
to
died.
Cyrus.
Cyrus.
Cyrus is the voice of Ares and Dionysus in Hades.
Oh
I
yeah, he
think
did get
also
that.
also Theseus, who's like a big blowhard in that
He's
game.
amazing.
Everybody hates him and loves him. Yeah,
Cyrus is fantastic.
He's really
But
good.
yeah, I didn't mean to
Anyway,
interject, but I was so thankful to have you on that
Yeah.
project.
So yeah, as a result of that, then I kind of got involved in a bunch of like small voiceover roles on the back of that, just through people I knew, and eventually doing more, you know, on the back of that. But I'm still doing music and audio design and stuff, but VO is kind of my primary thing now. I like to ride the wave wherever my interest kind of goes. I just, you know, if I'm enthusiastic about it, go for it, you know? So cool. That's me.
Oh God.
John.
Well, which came first, VO or your other audio job? I think it's hard to say. I was definitely doing. I guess if we expand the realm of things, I guess it was VO first, but not really. Acting first, definitely. I did a lot of theater when I was in like middle school and high school and college and stuff, musical theater and Shakespeare and stuff of that sort. I also, you know, I would also as a kid like try to. I was very big into audio dramas, so I would try to like record audio dramas playing multiple characters because I'm a nerd. And then at some point, like you know, I was also cultivating my you know, my compositional brain, writing more and more music. So I think like the first thing I got paid for was definitely on the music front. But the you know, but the acting has always kind of been there. Certainly the music is the thing that I do primarily now, but I have been able to do a good amount of interesting little voice roles, sometimes big voice roles, sometimes like weird voice roles. Like if you've ever played, there's a little indie game called Wander Song, where you play as a small bard who's trying to save the world. And you know, I am the bard, and I worked with my friends over at a Shell in the Pit Audio up in Vancouver to create the instrument, quote, instrument that you play, that you control in the game, of my voice. Just, you know, we created like a spreadsheet of vowel and consonant combinations and sang all that stuff. And then there were like dramatic directions. There are points where you're like depressed or you're scared, and so you have to sing all the same notes, but like do, I'm really afraid of something, and like, oh, it's so sad, or whatever. Like, but you just sing the same like set of, you know, of words and notes, and it was a weird thing to try to blend wordless a weird thing to try to blend this like wordless singing stuff into a kind of a, you know, a playable you know, emotive character that the player can technically do whatever they want with. But you know, definitely an interesting sort of thing. But like I've done stuff for adventure games and stuff for you know, one of the constant things is I always seem to end up doing a few voices for characters for games that I'm scoring right now. Like even if they're a little bit of barks and stuff like that. Like I did you know, there's a character called Fergus the Mad, who's this like this villain there's a whole slew of what they're called scourges that can be unleashed in a game I worked on called For the King. It's this turn-based tactical RPG, tabletop inspired. And like Fergus the Mad is just this, he looks like an insane leprechaun and he just steals everything you've got. Like if he gets unleashed, it's a bad time for everyone. And so there's just a lot of like cackling maniacal laughter.
Those are the best
and stuff
roles.
like that.
I need to play this game. It's in my
fun.
backlog, and I need to see how offended I should be as an Irish person.
Oh, you know, he doesn't say anything. It's just manic laughter. It's
He
fine.
doesn't go, oh, Bagara.
Oh my God.
Oh, my Lucky Charms. No, sorry, that's copyrighted. Never mind, forget that. Anyway, but yeah, it was a fun like little things like that. Like you do you know, sometimes you work on a game enough, then hey, we need some VO, and you'll do some stuff for that.
It helps to be in the room when that sentence happens.
Mhm.
We need
Exactly.
someone.
The room where it
John's got a face and does music. We should ask him if he... Yeah, and that's
And
kind
vice
of.
versa as well.
I'll
You know,
hop in since we're getting a lot of really cool questions through our forum.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody who's been filling that out. I'll try to quickly sum up my spiel since I'm the last one on this topic. Well, hey. So stage tech, I did a lot. I was always a stage manager, behind the scenes person, organizing everything, and
Always a
also
stage manager, never a stage. Wait, no, sorry.
always a stage manager and never allowed to take a nap, I think is more accurate. About 10 years of my life on and off, my main side job was touring with theater companies, operas, and interactive weird multimedia theater troupes as the stage manager, also known as people wrangler, a cat man, cat herder,
herder.
etc. And I've worked with animals and children and adults and combos of all of them. And whoo, boy howdy, you learn a lot of things there that you use in other forms of your life, because I became a spreadsheet wizard during that era. And when I got into doing sound design and working more on independent film, eventually that fell into interactive videos, which then also ended up in working as a lead at Shell Games as the audio lead at the company. I had to manage sometimes 7 to 8 projects at a time, because there were a lot of smaller games that would be working simultaneously. And without having that management background of spreadsheets and knowing how to basically put all of these things in a row and make sure labels are proper, I don't think I would have ever survived. And what was nice is kind of similar to like John was saying, when you're in the room, when people are starting to talk about they suddenly need voice, it helps if you're the audio person who also knows where the mics are and how to use them. And I have always been a choir junkie, so they knew that I was a singer. And then I've done community theater. I'm a Gilbert and Sullivan person. I like to do lots of silly things, Pirates of Penzance and all that. And I've worked on a zombie opera. Folks know me as working on Super Smash Opera. So being weird is something I'm not ashamed of. And I've done a lot of voices for, heck, even while in house, I was a water bear for a thing. I was a bunch of tardigrades, and I would use voice trills from vocal exercises to create my monsters for those. All the water bears go. It's all, and all their emotions are based on tongue rolls, which was hilarious. I've been a lot of atmospheric spooky beasts while working on things there. Even right now, there's a horror game coming out, and I like to do a lot of like banshee type stuff. I've been filtered into games as an atmospheric sound element. I've ended up doing things like with John, where I'm a lot of harumphy people in the background of an environment. But it's fun to me that I would not have gotten into realizing that it was fun and something that could be mixed into all these cool things and be part of a job if I hadn't already been set up as the sound designer at the company and the key person to be there. And what was nice is because I was so organized, when they started saying they wanted other people in the company to also step up and do voices once in a while, I became a director, which I hadn't been before, because instead of just having someone read lines basically for temp and stuff, we would make sure it was as close to the final as it could be, was mildly directed. So when I actually did get a final voice actor, it sounded spot on, kind of like the Will Wheaton experience. But I don't know, blah, 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 blah. Tech, sound design, voice. I'm now in Austin and I formed my own company. And it's like, I've decided that I've changed my whole focus in the last 2 years to be primarily voice direction and voice acting and sound design, because that's where my happy place is. And it seems like, I guess hopefully I know what I'm doing by now, that people trust to hire me for projects. It's kind of what happens. Like after a while, if you haven't died yet and you have some credits, hopefully it means something. I don't know.
A
But
whole bunch of more questions coming in.
I'm so
love these
scared by all
questions.
these questions. I feel bad talking about
We may
myself.
have
I'd rather
to flip
talk about.
over to questions.
Yeah, should we just start hitting the questions? These are really
Yeah,
good.
maybe.
If
Because we
I
got
can
about
take-
20 minutes left. So
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
quickly take the CYOA one while the audio drama thing is fresh. So CYOA, choose your own adventures. Amicia Cott asked, they haven't seen too many audio only choose your own adventures. Did we look at existing ones when developing the one we're currently working on? And if so, what do we like or dislike about existing ones? And is the one we're currently working on, me and Brian, going to be fully sound designed or primarily voice? So ours game that we don't have a title for yet will be fully sound designed. It's going to have, there's no robo voice involved. It's all going to be humans talking. And I've actually given talks at GDC about this. There's a talk about telling story through sound. It's in the GDC vault. And it was about making a Sherlock Holmes audio adventure game a couple years ago for the Echo. And I studied the existing games that were out there for Google Home and Echo and vice versa. And too many of them rely on the robo voice that is built in. And when you have a game that is 100% text, and all you hear is, you then go down the hall, and oh, you see that there is a spider waiting for you. Would you like to get the spider or go left or right? Like, do that without being
Get
bored.
that spider.
It takes you out, unless you're in a science fiction game where maybe that's supposed to sound like a
Where
robot.
it's like an AI or something literally actually talking to you then.
Yeah, I prefer to have everything, including the help menu and introducing you to the game, and your prompts all come from a narrator. And when talking to Brian and Liz Risha, who's also listening to the stream right now, apparently she sent in a question.
Shout out to Beepsicle.
Shout out to Beepsicle. We decided we're going to do the same thing, where we want people, once they go in, to be fully immersed. The narrator, the help, everything will be thematically fitting to the environment. Which maybe we can leak will be pirate themed. So you will have a piratey type narrator leading you in, and many colorful characters as you go, but you will never hear the robo voice until you exit the game completely.
We're just leaning into my inability to do anything other than the sea captain from The Simpsons. I actually can do other voices. Hire me.
These are all great. Does anyone someone pick one of these?
I'll take the one for the Union one.
Yes,
Union. Jedi Amanda here. How long did it take you to join the SAG after Union? I joined for one reason and one reason alone, and that was because I had to for Skyrim. Now, unions is a subject that is really way too big for the span of this panel.
It's a whole other panel.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just be as brief as I can. Unions were formed with like good interests at heart, right? And the reason behind unions in general is that people of a certain skill set or industry are being taken advantage of by corporate entities or whatever. They're being hired for either little to no money. People that go to get the work don't know how to negotiate for what they think is a fair rate, right? So people go, hey, let's form a union. Let's make it so that you can only, get a job, or when you go to get a job, the people have to pay you a minimum rate, right? So that's true for musicians, that's true for voice actors, that's true for plumbers, that's true for tons and tons of different industries. Now, you don't have to join a union, and depending on what state you live in, it can, like, for example, Texas is what's called a right to work state, which means that you can't be forced to join a union. There are some legal things surrounding making a minimum rate, like sort of the equivalent of union rates, but it's not an absolute requirement. So like you need to form your own personal, hey, this is what I feel I'm worth. This, it's either at the union rate or it's above it or it's lower than that, right? Because they have things like double scale, which changes things, right? And certain unions may only like allow certain numbers of people to work, or they may have inner circles of people who get most of the work. That's a whole other discussion as well. So having said that, there are union representatives that are somewhat local to where you are, and ask them hard questions about whether you should join. Say, you're like, hey, what's the real benefit to me? Like, how is it going to help? Like, well, we make it so that you negotiate for a minimum. Yeah, but how does that work? Do I get an agent? Do you do that negotiation on my behalf? Like, seriously, look into it, ask the difficult questions, be like, why does it help? Why is it a good thing? I've been on union projects and things have gone really well. I've been on non-union projects and things have gone really well.
Yeah.
Or not. And the same goes for union. It's really a tough question to answer in terms of whether you should or shouldn't. But Skyrim is what made me do it. And I don't even remember if I've paid my update my fee lately. So here's that.
Cool.
As the union reps are watching.
I haven't been on a union project in ages, so it's just like, okay.
And I'll also say, like, just so, like, I'm non-union, but I also live in Texas, which is the right to work state. So I'm allowed to work in both union and non. I believe John and Brian, you are non-union?
Non-union as well.
Non-union.
So Alex is the only one. Go ahead.
No, just most, weirdly enough, I think that almost everything I've done has been with
non-union
people not in the country, actually.
In
other countries. So I don't know how even that would work if you had to juggle that too. Anyway.
Oh, good question. God, there's some really
question.
good ones. Do we want to go serious or do we want to take a fun one?
I'm
just
interested in Ro's one, maybe just quickly, or
Oh, go ahead.
maybe if that's possible to quick. Ro Panaganti says,
Who's that guy?
Who's that guy?
I
don't
hope
know.
I pronounced his name right because I never say it out loud.
Yeah, a lot of us have worked on music.
Sounded right.
What would you recommend? Oh, let me read it.
Okay,
What would you
sorry.
recommend a fair went gray? What would you
highlighting
recommend a fairly new voice actor do to practice or put together a reel, especially having less or no professional examples of voiceover work?
Oh, I've got ideas about this.
For me at least, what I started doing before I started reading fan fiction. I literally was, a friend of mine was writing fan fiction for like Attack on Titan or something. It's pretty cool and really dramatic, not fluffy stuff, like really angsty stuff. And they were like, you sing, you do funny voices and accents sometimes. Maybe you could like help me with this or something just for a bit of fun. And that's how I started. I just started anonymously at the time. I was like, because I'm like, fanfic has certain associations with it sometimes. I really enjoy some fanfic. But yeah, anyways, moving on. So yeah, I started doing that. That was my thing. And just talking out loud in the house. I mean, there was a lot of time when I was living with just one flatmate or housemate or apartment mate in Dundee, Scotland. He'd be out a lot of the day, so I'd just be randomly saying stuff, like just cracking up mentally,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
it's not weird, people. It's not weird.
It's not weird. I mean,
a lot of us.
I talk myself through my work all the time because. Anyways, let's move on. I'm painting myself. Really
I was going to say. So within the context of putting together a reel, there's actually a couple things that I think you could probably capitalize upon, and this is maybe even a bit more aimed specifically at you, Ro. But one of the things you can do is, like, as a musician, you've got a lot of music in your catalog. If you're putting together a demo reel, just choose a bunch of music that has like interesting styles to go underneath that. You can play your own stuff. That's always good. Start looking at, and this is real stupid, but I went through a bunch of comic books and found like dramatic bits, because like usually it's like one sentence or two things. You'll never kick me alive, or something like that. You're like, I'll get you for whatever. Like it may be cliche and stereotypical, but if you can deliver them well and you have dramatic accompaniment to that is like, if you imagine the cool frame, the thing that's set in the cool frame in the comic book, and you can paint that picture with a little bit of sound design and a little bit of music. That's going to be super effective at conveying what it is. It's a slice of a fully formed idea. There's like a bit of my own demo reel where it's like, I stole some music from a game I did called Rodino, like combat music. And then I put the sound of like B-17 engines like roaring in the background, and like a dramatic like swell of like, I don't know, a swashbuckling hero swings in onto a Zeppelin and says a dramatic line this is the last time you've crossed up, kind of like think that is like, okay, yeah, that's it. Great. Perfect.
Yeah.
Watch out, this radioactive man.
Yeah. But also remember that when you're putting a reel together, when people ask for a reel, it's usually only about 1 or 2 minutes long max. And they want to hear some variety. So this swashbuckling thing, if that's an element you have in there, make sure that your whole reel isn't just swashbuckling, guys.
Yeah.
Change it up and choose some varying genres.
Yeah, it's that, and then it's a second later you're into well, if you think it's really necessary, and then in a second later you are you're a commanding king, and then you're just a small child who really wants to do a thing, but a scientist that is uncomfortable with this. But if you think about it for a second,
we got to get you on the Konami and Capcom roster, man.
Great.
Man, seriously.
But I think a lot of really good tips. Oh man, I'm just keeping an eye. We have about 10 minutes left, right?
One very quick point as well. I done a lot of voiceover auditions for practice on Casting Call Club, and also Voice Actors Club forum that's on Discord. They have a lot of stuff, unpaid work, paid work as well, that you can kind of try out for.
Oh yeah,
practice.
And sometimes there's like passion projects. A lot of us have passion projects, and there's no shame in working on something for fun to hone your craft, as long as you go in knowing that's the deal and you don't get slighted if someone doesn't pay you your $1 on PayPal for your job that you've done. So you have to learn what time do you want to put into it, and also as you're exploring, like even like Brian said, wandering around the house, find what voices you like to do. Because just because you can do a voice doesn't mean that should be your specialty. Find what's like your happy spots, right?
I'm sorry to keep adding to that. Also, for game VO, it really helps to have exertions and grunt type stuff.
Oh my god!
Because that is something that is so prevalent in games that isn't necessarily super obvious in like linear media. That just learning how to do things from this, those things are things that are in normal times are taught at things like GDC. I know DB Cooper used to run like an actual grunt session where she would have pads on the floor and people would get knocked down, and she would say, "Here's exactly how you need to make that sound with your voice."
Yep.
And so it's great.
Without falling over and knocking over the mic stand.
I took an ADR efforts workshop with Katie Lee once, actually. We were doing group Walla and efforts, and she would bring up on this giant screen a fight sequence from like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something, and you had to redo the entire fight to picture. And there were different ways, like being punched in the gut is very different than being slammed against the table, different than putting a punch into someone, and you learn how you have to make these sound different, because in a game just having every hit go is it's not gonna fly, especially in AAA larger titles where things are super realistic. But it helps.
I feel like I just want to. So one real quick thing is, if you are doing that and you're doing this for your first attempt at a reel, is literally do the physical action or do some physical action to
you have to move with
it. You gotta be
literally like punch your,
like
don't hurt yourself.
Punching a thing. Yeah, don't hurt yourself. Yeah, but like if you're like you're lifting something heavy, like put your hands like this and pull. It's really hard to do the thing.
Or even pretend like you're going.
Yeah.
So I think we can quickly answer one of these. Just offers a Kendo Soldier has a similar question to what a lot of people did, was, hey, where can you find some places to find gigs and start trying out stuff? We mentioned Casting Call Club is helpful. Voice Acting Club and Boards, they have a Discord and they post a lot of indie projects. There are pay to plays, and depending on people's opinions, I personally I'm on Voice 123 and Voices, and I've actually found a lot of good client work there, but it is a slog. You have to get used to auditioning a lot.
You
and
pay
really
a subscription for that, don't you?
You pay to be on the call, and it depends if it's worth it to you, if that's what you want to try. Some people aren't big on pay to plays. Having an agent doesn't mean you were going to be sent casting calls constantly. It is still on you to find work often. So learn, if you're ever Googling and learning more about voice, learn the difference between a voice agent and a manager. They're two different things, and I know that's often a common misconception. God, we only have so much time. Do you guys want to do one of the fun ones? Like, what is our favorite personality types to do in the booth?
For me, it's maniacal evil.
Oh, damn it, that's mine. Oh, sorry. Darn it, that's mine. I like demoniacal laughs and critters. I like being monsters and beasties, like spider. I like to be spider demons. Yes! Those are fun. And moms. What about you guys? What's your favorite voice types to have to do in a booth?
I like trying to be British. I
like you said trying.
Yes,
trying. You got this.
It's definitely not. Sometimes it's more Michael Caine.
Definitely.
That's the thing. Or sometimes it's a bit more Oxford. Or some things, just like it really depends on the type that I'm really trying to go for. And I just, the problem is there's so many different kinds. I haven't actually perfected the specific accents yet. But to the average American, I can fool anybody. I can say,
dumb American.
So can I.
Were you born in the UK? It's just like, yeah, I was born in the UK. It's no problem. Yeah. No, I like doing.
No bother, mate. No bother.
Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think it's hard to say because I've done a lot of fun things, but I very much I've yet to really get to sink my teeth into, except in a few weird contexts, kind of. What's right? The best way to put this. I just like to play the kind of the Morden Solus nerdy scientist, sort of roles. It's just quite. You can talk about things like this, and you can talk slightly faster.
Where you have to adjust your glasses.
And Oh yes.
It's like,
Well,
yeah.
actually, to think about this for just a moment, you could.
Terribly sorry. Terribly
So
sorry.
sorry.
Oh my God.
Interrupt, please. Carry on.
Very
Nervous
good.
people
So
are fun.
semi kind of Doctor Who-ish then, yeah.
Do we want to? We can quickly add the other fun one. Beepsicle,
Let's
who many of us know as Liz Rishel. Hi, Liz. Asks,
What's up, Liz?
to all
You've been
panelists,
outed.
what is the favorite line? What is the favorite line you've ever recorded?
Oh jeez.
I took an arrow to the knee.
You recorded that?
And here's the funny part, right? I didn't say that. I was 2 fairly major characters in Skyrim, and anybody that went up to me and says, "Oh my gosh, you were this person, that person," say the arrow to the knee line. And I was like, okay, so if I was what's his name? Oh my gosh, Ahmad Motier or I'm sorry, Ankano. Let's say the evil wizard Ankano. I'd be like, I took an arrow to the knee. You know, just like I never said that, but since everybody took an arrow to the knee, right?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of knee insurance in Skyrim is real expensive.
High premiums.
Racket. Sure.
I mean, in fact, they really don't cover it anymore. It's just so many knee injuries.
That's right. Pre-existing condition.
Oh my God. I feel like
I
a
have
lot
no
of
idea.
my favorite
no
line
idea.
might actually be singing the "I Expect You to Die" theme, just because it is a line that I say over and over again. So technically, does that count if it's "I expect you to die" and I sing it 4 billion times? So that's a line. But otherwise, my favorite one is in Earplay did a Pugmire, which is a D&D universe where everyone's a dog. And the villains are cat people. I was a cat villain in Pugmire, the audio adventure, and I was One-Eyed Mad Molly.
And she kind of had an kit voice going on. And when she would try to get money from you and their currency is plastic, she'd be like, cross my paw with plastic and I'll consider it.
And I loved everything with her because it was just like Eartha Kitt and Yzma from Emperor's New Groove. And I got to do a lot of breathy
Eartha Kitt
voice.
10, I assume, right?
Mhm.
Eartha Kitten.
Sorry.
So for me, it's that's probably those two.
I still literally can't think of anything, so don't worry about me just now.
Man, it's
There will be.
All blurring into a molasses at
God.
the moment.
I mean,
We
I
have 3
personally
minutes.
love your. I
Yeah, we got
personally
3
love your.
minutes.
I'm not that old line. That one really just.
Oh yes, Chrono Trigger, a remix, the trial arrangement from Chrono Trigger by John Robert Matz and performed by so many people. I'm
won
not
an
that
award.
old, actually.
And we won an award for it.
Which I channeled Master Roshi from Dragobon Z for that.
It's
We
so
have
good.
okay. Quickly,
Yeah.
let's pick a favorite question. We got 3
Go.
minutes.
Okay.
God, you guys asked so many good questions. Oh dear.
We can always discuss some of that in the stream chat or something in
Yeah.
Discord afterwards. If we...
But what habits or practical things do you do to prepare? I always take a hot shower and neti pot a half hour before a long session to make sure that at least my vocals are clear, and then I do singer warm-ups. Actually, I do and like I do hummy chewies. I do
Okay.
those. I also
I
do the
do,
and diction. I do the lips, the teeth, the tip of the tongue, the lips, the teeth, the tip
I do
of the tongue, the tip of
Mommy
the tongue.
made me match my M&Ms on Monday morning.
Yeah.
and
And the only other thing, if it's going to be a yelling session, I always pre-test my mic and position where I think my loudness is going to be. So it's also a prep of where I got to be and checking if it's a directed session, if they need visuals to make sure that my webcam is hooked up properly and that the feeds are working properly. So it's a tech thing, but also a physical to make sure the meat instrument, which is your vocal cords, is ready to tackle the day.
Precisely.
Hot tea with lemon and honey really helps. There's also a tea called Throat Coat.
Yes.
And that's really, really good stuff. And as a matter of fact, Blizzard has an orc kit.
Yes,
for
they
people
do.
That do orc voices. That's actually in the
It's an
booth.
orc survival kit.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's pretty
so
cool.
good. I love that.
Yeah, I like that they treat they keep their singers from being murdered. That's nice.
many other
God.
questions
How do you approach lines that go against your ethics? That's a deep one.
Ooh,
I think it really. Boy, that's tricky because I
that's
think
a huge question.
I think you got to ask yourself if, or not even ask yourself, ask them, like, what is the plot of this character? Is this something you really don't like, but hey, this is a bad guy, or this is a negative element of the plot? How does it reflect on it? Like, if this is a moral element, like, hey, this character is a jerk, and we know they're a jerk, and you're saying a line that you know is just uncomfortable, but you're gonna like, hey, you know what, the character's a bad guy.
Also,
but it makes sense rather than it necessarily being problematic as such. It could be. Sorry.
I would like to say also, make sure if you're ever uncomfortable with anything someone asks you to say, bring it up, because I feel like there's this misconception that we just go, but you're a human and it is going to be your voice portraying something for God knows however that file is out there. If you ever have a problem with something, bring it up. And I've actually been on some projects where they mentioned, if this is too offensive, we actually can rewrite some things if you, as the voice actor, are not comfortable in a certain area. And you should make sure also to build that into your contract if there's ever going to be concern that that's going to come up, just so it says you will be allowed to review and turn some stuff down.
Right.
So but always say something. Never just go in.
Review your scripts beforehand too.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing would, like, I mean, from their end, if you show up and, hey, this is an unacceptable thing, and I'm out, that's not good. But if you look at it in advance and say, hey, I can't do this.
We've been
hit the hour mark.
We've been given the go. Well, thank you guys so much. We'll try to keep an eye on. I think there's one of the chats in Discord. We can keep answering some questions if we can. But otherwise, thank you so much for our time. Thank you, John, Brian, and Alex. And
thank you.
It's been wonderful talking to you guys. Have a wonderful VGM together. And
come find us on the Twitter and everything else. And thank you for watching.
Everybody, have a wonderful weekend.
Yes. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.